What up, ladies and gentlemen? Andy here. I went from depressed and suicidal to living a life of abundance and joy and wearing cool hats, although it's got a little bit of water on it. I went out in the rain just a second ago. If I can do it, you sure as hell can too. A question that I get asked quite a lot by my coaching clients, by some of you in the chat or in the comments section is, what exactly do I say when I'm out on a date? Like if I'm out on a date with someone that first date, I don't know them very well, what do I talk about? Like what conversations can we have? What topics do I bring up? How do I do small talk? And, I understand the feeling of like nervousness and not knowing what to say, but the first thing that I want to say before anything else is give yourself permission to suck. You don't have to be ultra charismatic. It's okay if you're nervous. It's okay if you're a little bit awkward, blah, 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 blah. I myself was completely and utterly terrified for my first, 20 dates that I ever went on. I didn't know what I was supposed to say. I didn't know what we should talk about. I didn't know how to be charismatic. I didn't know how to be funny or interesting or any of these kind of things. And I really did just have to give myself permission to do a crappy job at the start. I accepted the fact that I didn't know how to be charismatic. I didn't know how to be funny. I didn't know how to be entertaining. And I just went on a bunch of dates and slowly improved a little bit and got a little bit better at it. And at this point I've been on God knows how many dates. And I've come to see that most people are pretty fucking nice. They're not sitting on a date with me, or they're not sitting on a date with you expecting you to be perfect, needing you to be funny and charismatic and perfect and always have the perfect thing to say and always be super smooth and all of that shit. No. Most people are humans. They're not perfect themselves, and they will completely understand if you're not perfect yourself either. It's usually not the other person who expects you to be perfect. It's usually you putting that pressure on yourself. So the first little tip I'll give of what to say is let go of that expectation that you're supposed to be perfect or that you can be perfect. Just go on a date with the mindset of, I'm there to have fun. We'll talk about whatever we talk about. If I do a crappy job, that's okay. I'm inexperienced or I'm new or I'm nervous. I will get better with, experience and practice. I don't have to be perfect. I'm just there to have a good time. Basically, what I'm saying here is change your mindset or change the intention that you have for a date. Rather than going on a date and thinking, I have to be perfect, I have to do a good job. No, go on a date thinking, I'm there to have fun. I'm going to see if this person is cool. They're going to see if I'm cool. We're going to see if we have a bit of a connection, if we have fun, if we want to have sex, whatever it is that we're looking for. But let's go on this date with less expectations on ourselves to be perfect and more just going into it with a casual sort of chill mindset of I'm going to have fun. The other person's going to have fun. We're going to see what happens. All of that said, I still get questions to this day where people will say, what exactly do I talk about? So in this video, I'll give you a few different ideas, I guess, of what you can talk about. But the first thing that I want to say is talk about whatever the fuck you want to talk about. There is no perfect thing to talk about. There is no rule. None of this is me telling you what you should talk about or what you have to talk about. It's your life. Your date conversations can be whatever you, and I guess you would say, and the other person want. Talk about whatever the hell you want. So my mindset when I go on dates is I usually have the mindset of I'm just going to have fun and the other person can come along for the ride. In other words, I'll talk about the stuff that I want to talk about. I'll talk about the topics that I want to talk about. And obviously if they want to talk about something, great, I'll go along for the ride with that. But I'm thinking I'm going to have fun and the other person can have fun with me. What I mean by all of that is I will usually talk about the topics that I want to talk about. And then that usually, me then doing that and having fun with that means that the other person can usually relax a little bit and have fun too. So I'm having fun. They see me having fun and they go, cool, I'll have fun too. All right, so I'm going to throw a bunch of different suggestions at you now of things that you can talk about. Again, you don't have to talk about all of these. I wouldn't necessarily write all of these down and go, oh, okay, I got to make sure I cover all of these topics. But maybe if you're really nervous and you just want Uncle Andy or Daddy Andy to tell you what to say, you're like, Andy, can you just give me 3 fucking suggestions of what to say so I don't have to be so nervous, so I at least have a little bit of a game plan? maybe pick 3 of these suggestions that I'm about to give you, memorize them if you want to. Again, you don't have to be perfect, but just bring up 3 of these topics, and that's usually enough to go on a date and have a little bit to talk about. And before we get into that, I also did a very similar video a few months ago called How to Make Dating Fun, and I talked about a bunch of activities that you can do on a date to have fun. And in that video, and this video is on my YouTube channel, I talked about, you can people watch, you can ask each other deep questions, you can go geocaching, you can pat some dogs, you can talk about self-improvement. And I talked about a bunch of fun activities. You can go bowling, laser tag, blah, 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 a bunch of actual activities. So go and watch that video if you haven't already. But this video here today is me going to be talking more about what you can actually verbally talk about, like the conversation that you might have while you're on a date. So the first thing that I often talk about with people I'm on a date with is I will say, what has your dating experience been like? Like, do you have any cool dating stories? If I met the person on Tinder or Hinge, I'll say, how's Tinder been treating you? How's your Hinge experience? Like, have you met anyone interesting? Have you met anyone funny? Have you met any, cool, unique people? Have you had some maybe interesting dates? I usually don't say, have you had any bad dates? But I'll say, have you had any sort of like weird or unusual dates? And then I will share some of my wildest or my most fun or my most interesting or funny, recent or old dating stories from my own sort of dating life and sex life. Similar to that, sometimes I will ask, what are you looking for? As in, what do you want from this dating app? Or what do you want from your dating life or your sex life or your relationship life? Usually I ask this a little bit less these days. So this was a question I used to ask all the time. But now I will ask this question on the dating app itself, or I will make it more clear on the dating app what I am looking for. And if you're not familiar with what my dating life and my sex life and my love life looks like, I am currently with my girlfriend Imogen. We have been together for 6 years at this point. We date women together. We sleep with women together, sometimes casual, sometimes a little bit more long term. There's a girl that we're seeing right now that we've been seeing for about a year, and we're also open to other women, probably a bit more casual if we're going to see other women. But yeah, that's where we're at right now. I make all of that very clear on the dating apps. So does my girlfriend Imogen. My girlfriend Imogen will find women for us to date, together. And both of us on our dating apps make it very clear. We're like, this is what we're looking for. We're looking for threesomes. We're into BDSM. Is this something that you're open for? So we make it very, very, very clear on the app. But if you're not making it as clear on the app what you're looking for, you can just bring this up on the date. What is it you're looking for? Or you could say, here's what I'm looking for. Does that suit you? What are you open to? What do you want to try? What are you looking for? Are you looking for something casual? Are you looking to build something a little bit more, I guess, committed, a little bit more maybe serious, you might say? Yeah, what are you looking for? And here's what I'm looking for. The next thing I will bring up on dates quite a lot is I will say, and I'll usually have a big smile on my face when I say this, but I'll say like, what do you think the meaning of life is? Or sometimes I will say to women beforehand, listen, when we meet for this date, you and I are going to sit down together, or, now there's my girlfriend Imogen there as well. We have threesome dates, but I'll say we're going to sit down for this date and we're going to figure out the meaning of life together, all right? Or we're going to figure out like the cure for cancer, okay? Like, and it's obviously a silly kind of funny, joking conversation, but with the meaning of life question, I do kind of segue into that a little bit. And I do kind of ask us sort of in a somewhat sort of serious way. I'm like, what do you actually think the meaning of life is? And they're like, haha, I don't know. And I'm like, well, like, what are you interested in? Like, what do you want the purpose of your life to be? When you're on your deathbed, when you're in your 80s or your 90s, you're on your deathbed, what kind of person do you want to have been? What kind of things do you want to have done? What kind of impact do you want to have had on the world or the friends around you, your family, the people you care about? Like, what kind of person do you expect or project yourself to be when you're, old and you're about to die? You're about to leave this mortal coil. And it seems like a big, serious question. But for me personally, I love to jump straight to that more, I guess, deep stuff. I'm someone that doesn't tend to have a lot of like small talk conversations, and there's nothing wrong with small talk. If you want to do small talk, go for it. Like I said, on a date, talk about whatever the hell you want to talk about. But I like to get in there and talk about the maybe deeper or more serious stuff. Like, what is your mission? What is your purpose? Like, what is something that you're interested in? What are your goals? What is your reason for being here? What do you think the meaning of life is, for you? What's important to you? What kind of person do you want to be? What are your principles? That's something else that I like to ask. What's important to you? Some people will say family, others will say being kind and compassionate to other people around me. Some people will say I'm super ambitious, I want to achieve a lot. What are those goals? What are those principles that you live by? What kind of person do you want to be? Why are you here? And I love, like I said, to jump straight to that question. And you'll find that most people have a pretty interesting answer, and most people are pretty happy to tackle that question. You will, if you decide to ask this question, you will often get people saying like, whoa, that's a big question. And you're like, yeah, I know. So like, what is the meaning of life? What is your purpose? Why are you here? And they'll go, oh, okay. Oh, fuck. Wow, no one's ever asked me that. Okay. And sometimes they'll sit there for a minute and think about it, and then they'll go, I think, and then they'll tell you the answer. But I've found that basically everyone I've ever asked this question to fucking loves this question. They're just not prepared for it. Like, maybe they're expecting that we were going to get together and just talk about fucking, I don't know, friends and work and that kind of stuff, and talk about that stuff if you want to. But that, for me personally, is not the stuff that I want to talk about. But I found that almost everyone that I asked this question of loves the question. It just might come a little bit out of left field for them. And so don't be surprised if some people are a little caught off guard and they go, whoa, okay, holy shit, what the fuck? You're asking me about the meaning of life. Yeah. And then you excitedly and with a smile on your face say, fuck yeah, I want to know about the meaning of life. Like, what are you here for? Come on, let's talk about the deep shit. What are we here talking about? Work and hobbies, and that stuff's fine, but tell me what your meaning of life is. And then funnily enough, speaking of the meaning of life, that is something else that I talk about quite a lot. I will literally, speaking of hobbies, that is something else that I will ask about quite a bit. What are you into? What do you like to do? What gets you excited? Do you play any sports? Like, what's your biggest passion? Any of that kind of stuff. Like, tell me about what you do day to day. Or I like to phrase it as like, tell me what you like to do for fun. And then obviously I share my own hobbies. Something else I love to ask about is tell me your coolest childhood memory. Or like, do you have any cool stories growing up? Like, where did you grow up, and tell me the coolest part of growing up. A lot of people, when they ask about like childhood, because childhood is like a common thing that strangers talk to about it, like with each other. It's like a small talk conversation, same as like people ask about job, they'll ask about hobbies. But whenever people ask about childhood, they usually just say like, where did you grow up? Oh, I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona. Cool. Did you like it? It was okay. Wow, where did you grow up? I grew up in Mississippi. Did you like it? It was okay. Like that's how most people talk about their childhood. But I love to like sow the seeds or like set the stage, like basically ask a leading question that will allow them to give a really interesting answer. So I'll say, tell me the coolest childhood story that you have. What was your favorite freaking memory from growing up? What was like the coolest thing you ever did with your family? What was the coolest thing you ever did at school? So like I will set the stage for like, I want you to tell me a cool story or an interesting story. Or you could say like, what's something from your childhood that you've never confessed to anyone else? And I promise I won't judge you, but like, is there anything you've ever held on to from your childhood that was like, I don't know, maybe you stole one time, or maybe like you had some secret crush on someone that you never told them? Like, tell me the coolest like secret that you had growing up. Or like, what's the coolest thing that most of your friends don't know about you? And if you told them, they'd probably be like, well, that's cool. And you've just never gotten around to telling them because it's never come up. Like, I like to set the stage for tell me an interesting, cool, fun anecdote from your childhood. Something else that I talk about on like literally every single date is sex and kink and what the other person might be into, maybe what they've tried, what they haven't tried. Maybe is there any like cool sex stories that they have? Is there any cool sex thing that they've always wanted to do, but they've been too worried to try it? Is there anything they want to try, but they're worried other people will judge them? So anything sex related. I might say, is there something you've always wanted to try, but you've never told anyone? What sex toys do you have? What BDSM stuff are you into? Like, what BDSM stuff would you like to try? And obviously that's a lot easier of a conversation for me and my girlfriend Imogen to have, because we literally in our dating profiles mention BDSM and sex and all of that. So if you have a look on the screen right now, I've got my current Hinge profile showing, and you can see the very first picture is a BDSM picture with handcuffs. And then the third picture, the one on the top right, is Imogen and I together, and she's wearing a blindfold. Then if you have a look on the right, where it says unusual skills, in an open relationship, we're both into BDSM and we're both very good at teaching. And this on the screen is just an example conversation. You can see in the very first panel on the left. So this is all one conversation, just broken up into 3 parts. You can have a look on the very left. The first or the second message that I send is, my girl and I, her name is Emmy, enjoy exploring BDSM/kink with women, helping them open up and explore in the bedroom as well as out of it. Is a BDSM or threesome dynamic something that you would like to explore? And so I'm showing you all this to show you that we pretty much talk about sex like it's very clear that we're meeting for sex. Literally, do you want to try BDSM with us? Do you want to have a threesome with us? And so we go on a date, and talking about sex is pretty normal. Like, we've literally discussed it before we even, it's the second message we send. So before we've even met, we've already discussed sex. So segueing to sex in the middle of a conversation, saying, hey, so what BDSM stuff do you want to try? That's a very normal conversation. But when I was single, like when I was just dating by myself, 6 or so years ago, I, at the start, felt very nervous to start talking about sex. I felt very awkward. I felt terrified to bring it up. I was like, what if she thinks I'm a pervert? What if it's weird? What if other people hear us talking about sex? What if she thinks I'm disgusting? What if she says she doesn't want to have sex with me? And like, why are you asking about sex? And so I was very nervous. I was really awkward. But I just gave myself permission to be clumsy with it. And by the way, lots of my coaching clients are very clumsy when they talk about sex. And again, you don't have to talk about sex, but if you want to talk about sex, a lot of my clients are very nervous to talk about it. They feel very awkward. The way that I used to do it, and that most of my clients do, is you'll talk about dating. Like I said before, you say, have you had any interesting dates? Have you met anyone cool from Tinder? Have you met anyone cool from Hinge? Tell me about your dating life. How's that been going? You go from there and you'll be like, have you had any interesting sex stories? What's on your bucket list? Is there anything you've wanted to try but you've been too afraid to bring up? You can kind of just like gently segue into it by talking about dating first and then start talking about sex. And then if you're comfortable, you can talk about as much sex stuff as you want. Like I said, my go-to question is like, what stuff have you always wanted to try? What's on your sexual bucket list? What sex toys do you own? Have you ever tried spanking? Have you ever tried whips? Have you ever tried being tied up, restrained like your arms with rope? Like, have you ever been blindfolded? Have you ever had a threesome? Have you ever fooled around with another girl? Like, what stuff have you tried? But I promise it's okay if you're a little bit awkward, a little bit clumsy, if you struggle to even bring up the conversation at all. This was something that I used to struggle with. A lot of dates I would go on, I would want to talk about sex because I was interested in it, obviously. That's why I was meeting the person. But I would try and push myself, and an hour would pass, 2 hours would pass. It would get late into the evening and she'd say, hey, I'm tired. It was nice meeting you. I'm going to go home. And I would in my head be like, God damn it. Like, why didn't I talk about sex? I pussied out, so to speak. That's okay. Like, you don't have to be perfect. You can talk about sex the next time. You can never talk about sex if you want to just never talk about sex. But yeah, you can just try again on the next date. You have unlimited retries. It's okay to be a little nervous about this stuff. And talking about sex, like on the date, talking about it, makes it so much easier to then say, would you like to come back to my apartment? What for? Well, to try some of the stuff we just talked about, or to make out a little bit, to fool around, to see what happens. I find it so much easier to then invite the person back to my place if we've already talked about sex. And that's probably the biggest reason why I started talking about sex on a date in the first place, because it just made it more normal for me to then say, do you want to come back to my place and try some of the stuff we talked about? And the person would either say, yes, that sounds good. We can fool around, try some stuff, amazing. Or they'd say, maybe not tonight, maybe next time, amazing. Or no, thank you, not at all, cool, amazing. I'll go on date or spend time with someone who does want to have sex and, pursue things with me. So yeah, talking about sex makes it a lot easier to then invite the person back to your place. It doesn't feel weird or awkward because you've already been talking about sex. Another thing I really like to talk about with people I go on dates with, and now that we're having these threesome dates, Imogen and I, and by the way, we've been doing that for about the last 6 years, so that's something we've been doing for quite a while now. We will talk about like what goals or hopes or ambitions the other person have. We tend to date people who are ambitious or at least have some goals and are into improving themselves. You know, like maybe they go to the gym, maybe they have some sort of fitness goal. They don't have to be like hardcore, ultra ambitious, but we like someone that at least understands the value of improving yourself and someone that enjoys making progress and setting goals and seeing what they're capable of and improving their mind and improving their heart and their soul and their body and all of that kind of stuff. So, yeah, talking about self-improvement can be a lot of fun. And then you get to talk about your own self-improvement and what you're working on and what goals you have and all of that. So, that's a really fun topic to start waxing lyrical about. Something else that I like to talk about with people now is spirituality, whatever that might mean for you. You know, if that's religion, if that's just your connection with other human beings, which is usually what I mean when I say spirituality, my connection with the greater world, my connection with life itself, my connection with consciousness, whatever this weird consciousness that we all seem to be a part of is, you know, other people's versions of spirituality. I'm very interested in other people's connections with religion, or if they're an atheist, I'm very interested in that. I like to know about people's, I guess, all-encompassing whole view of life, of existence, you know, whether that's they believe in a deity, they believe in just connecting to other people around them, they believe in nothing. I'm interested in that, whatever it is that they might be interested in. So that's a fun topic that I like to talk about. Another thing I really love to do on dates is use what you might call card game apps or deep question apps. There's a couple of these. There's one called Party Cues. There's another one called Big Talk. You can get like actual physical ones like this one. This is called Extreme Personal Questions. And basically what these are is they're a bunch of cards. Some of them are an app on your phone that ask a bunch of questions. Some of them are literal physical cards. And so you'll pull them out, you know, there's like hundreds of different cards and they have questions on them and you'll kind of just flick through. You can just take the whole box with you, or, you know, if you have the app, you can just take the app on your phone. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, you guys can see that. So on the app, so my favorite one is Party Cues, and this is available for Android and iPhone. There's a free version, there's a paid version, and it has a whole bunch of different categories, as you can see there. And in each of those different categories, there's like 100 different questions. And so you can literally just ask each other these really cool, some of them are deep, some of them are funny, some of them are sexual, some of them are not sexual, some of them are about family life, some of them are about goals, some of them are about religion. They're about like a whole bunch of different topics. Or you can use, like I said, the physical actual cards, and you basically just ask each other these questions. You know, you pick a question, then your date picks a question, then you pick a question, then they pick a question. You can kind of go back and forwards, and it's a really quick, like, icebreaker way to ask each other some deep questions or some fun questions or some silly questions or some sexual questions. If you want sexual questions, this is probably the best one that I've ever found. It's called Extreme Personal Questions. I think you can just buy it on like Amazon and eBay and stuff like that. It has a lot of like sexual questions. Some of them are just fun questions, like what is the dumbest answer you've ever given in a class? And some of them are more sexual and kind of funny, like what is the most ridiculous thing you've ever said to yourself while masturbating? What is the most ridiculous thing you would do right now if somebody gave you $100? What do you usually think about when you're looking at your body in a mirror? What is the most selfish thing you have ever prayed for? If you could be the opposite gender for a day, what would you do with your new genitals? I think pretty much everyone in the world is like, I would touch them. If you were granted one superpower, what would it be? What is the most personal question you've ever asked a doctor? What was your last naughty or erotic dream about? What is your deepest, darkest secret? What two celebrities would you enjoy having sex together? Like if you got to watch them have sex together. What's the most irresponsible thing you've ever done while driving? Have you ever spied on a crush or a stranger that you liked? What is the sappiest thing that you've ever texted or written to someone? Do you have any friends that you've ever masturbated to their photos? What's a negative thought that you often have in your head that you would like to be rid of? You know, questions like these, and some of them are a little bit more tame, some of them are a little bit more sexual. But it's a really, really, really fun way to come up with some like deeper questions, some more interesting questions, some questions that you might not think of. And it's almost like because the card is telling you to say that, it's okay for you to say something that you might not normally say. Like a lot of people are not on a date gonna say tell me about the most interesting thing you've ever masturbated to. Like, a lot of people would feel really weird and awkward just saying that out of the blue. I would say that stuff. Like, I say that stuff all the time, but that took me years to get that comfortable, to be able to just say whatever the hell I feel like saying. But these card games, it's on the card. I have to read it. We don't have to, but like, it's on the card. I'm reading it out. It's not me saying it. It's the card saying it. Oh, okay, let's both play along and we'll both answer the question. And there's almost a sense of like, we're answering this question together. And so we're both doing this together. It's a weird, awkward question, or it's a sexual question, or it's a deep and meaningful question, or it's a very personal question, but we're both going to answer it. We'll do this together. So yeah, I love these card games. Like I said, this one is called Extreme Personal Questions. It's like a physical card. You got the actual cards. Probably my favorite one is one called Party Cues. Again, you can see the title right up the top there, and this is available on Android and on iPhone, and I think they even have physical cards that you can buy on like eBay or Amazon. And I also love this app. This one is called Big Talk, and this is available on Android and iPhone as well, and they have a free version as well. So yeah, these card games are a really, really, really quick and easy way of jumping straight to some of those deeper questions or those icebreaker questions. It's a really fun way of like getting past the like awkward small talk, like, what do you do for work? I do this job. Do you like it? It's okay. Tell me about your childhood. It was okay. Like, you're skipping all of that stuff and jumping straight to the like really fucking interesting questions. Like, what do you normally think about when you look at yourself in the mirror? What is something that you're insecure about that most people tell you is beautiful or amazing, but you're insecure about it? Like, you're jumping straight to the really cool questions and getting to know someone in their mind. Kind of similar to this, something that you can do that's very similar to this is if you just Google questions to fall in love, a psychologist or a couple of psychologists a long time ago or a while ago came up with 36 questions that they believe lead to love, or basically help you really get to know someone on a very fucking deep level. So just type in on Google questions to fall in love, and it's 36 questions. There's a whole bunch of articles that basically tell you the questions. This is one here. If you scroll down, it's got all the questions after all the ads. Here you go. So here's the 36 questions. And the idea is you would ask someone these questions either on a first date or, over the first couple of dates or whatever, or ask someone some of these questions. And they start out quite simple. Like, given the choice of anyone in the world, who would you want as a dinner guest? Would you like to be famous? In what way? Before making a telephone call, do you ever rehearse what you're going to say? And why? What would constitute a perfect day for you? When did you last sing to yourself or someone else? But if you scroll down and like start going through these questions, they start getting a little bit deeper. Like, is there something that you've dreamed of doing for a long time? Why haven't you done it? If you ask someone that question and you really get them thinking, like, Jesus fucking Christ, you feel like you're building a pretty deep connection. These are questions that people sort of like a lot of people don't ask themselves these questions ever. And then they get to the end of their life and they have regrets and they feel like they didn't live the life that they wanted. These are some pretty fucking special questions, even just to ask yourself some of these questions. Like, what is your most treasured memory? What do you value most in a friendship? What roles do love and affection play in your life? And then as you keep going, the questions start getting more like personal about both of you. Like, let's make 3 true we statements. For instance, we are both in this room feeling, I don't know, a connection, Complete this sentence. I wish I had someone with whom I could share ... So they start becoming like pretty deep questions. And by the way, where it says partner, what they mean is like the person that you're on a date with. And, like, I love this one. Tell your partner what you like about them. Be very honest this time, saying things that you might not say to someone that you've just met. That's a fucking deep and personal question. And that's question number 28. The idea is you've asked like 27 previous questions by this point. So you're slowly like warming up to asking these like really deep questions. Like, when did you last cry in front of another person or by yourself? If you were to die right now, this evening, with no opportunity to communicate to anyone, what would you most regret not having told someone? Why haven't you told them yet? That's a fucking deep question. That's the kind of question that you only think about, or most people only think about when they're on their deathbed. So you're asking like pretty deep questions. So I really like these questions. Imogen and I have gone through all these questions. You don't have to ask all these questions like on a first date. Some of them might be, very deep questions that you might not feel comfortable asking on a first date. That's fine. But like, I like these questions is the point that I'm making. You could pick and choose a couple of these questions. Maybe ask each other these questions over 10 dates or something, your first 10 dates. So yeah, those are some fun questions that I like to go through. But yeah, again, with all this stuff, like I said, you don't have to know of the perfect thing to say. You don't have to memorize all this. You can talk about whatever the hell you want to talk about on a date. You can give yourself permission to suck. You do not have to be a great conversationalist. If someone is on a date with you, they already like you to some extent. Otherwise, they wouldn't have shown up for a date with you. So take off some of that pressure to be perfect. Nothing bad happens if you're a little bit clumsy. Nothing bad happens if you're awkward, if you're shy, if you can't speak, if you don't know what to say, if you feel weird, if you're fucking having a panic attack. All of that is okay. The worst that happens is the other person doesn't want to go on a date with you. And that's a beautiful thing. You've been spared. Do you really want to go on a date with someone that isn't a good fit for you? Do you really want to go on a date with someone that won't, nothing against the other person, but won't allow you the space to be imperfect? Do you really want to go on a date with someone that isn't that into you? No. And so it's amazing if they don't go on another date with you. Now you're freed up, and so are they, to go and find people that you actually match with and connect with and click with. If you want more help with any of this, I know that dating, particularly when you're inexperienced and new or maybe a virgin, I know this stuff can be a little bit nerve-wracking, maybe a little bit scared. So if you want more help with this, I have coaching. I obviously have a big, hardcore coaching program. There's a link in the description below to that. I also offer one-off $200 coaching calls if you want to sit down with me for a couple of hours and go through anything you're nervous about, talk about a plan or come up with a plan of action, whatever your goals might be. I will help you achieve those big, beautiful goals that you have. As always, go out there and crush those goals and have fun on your dates. You don't have to be perfect with any of this stuff. You don't have to know exactly what to say. This video is just a whole bunch of different suggestions of what you can say. You can talk about any of this stuff. You can talk about any of the stuff that you want to talk about any of the stuff that your partner wants to talk about. I mean, hell, you can even say to your partner, what do you want to talk about? What would you like to talk about? Or before you go on a date, text them and say, hey, come up with 3 topics that you want to talk about on the date, like 3 fun topics, and text them to me. And I'll text you 3 fun topics. And then when we meet up, we've got 6 fun things that we're excited to talk about. That's fun. The other person is on your team. They're not the enemy. You don't have to sit there and see them as the other. Oh, I better impress the other person. No, they're your teammate. You're both going on a date together to have fun together. Nama fucking stay, motherfuckers. Namaste. Go and have a fun date. Go have fun. Meet some cool people. Stick your penis in them or stick your vagina on them. Go have fun. If you've been wanting an amazing, awesome, elite sex life, tons of threesomes, plenty of wild adventures and great memories with awesome people, we would love to help you get there. Here's just a little bit of what our coaching clients have achieved in their time in the program. Renee had a threesome in just his 2nd week of coaching, had a woman write him a love letter, and he went on to have sex with 12 women in just 12 weeks of coaching. Corky had his first threesome, slept with 7 amazing women, and made a ton of awesome memories with them. George and Power both had sex with 10 women each in their 12 weeks, had a bunch of wild adventures along the way. Join me and join them by clicking the coaching link in the description below.